Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the MDC Talks. My name's Omari Carter. We are the Motion Dance Collective, a screen dance production company that promotes the creation, presentation, and education of dance on film practice. We are here for round 2 of our talk about Quimera with Neus, Cortes. Anna Clifford has joined us, and we're just going to chat away about the process of making work that goes from stage to the screen space. So, my first question is, how did Quimera come about in the first place? I saw online that you had some laboratories, some creative choreographic laboratories in Madrid and Mallorca. And so was that the beginning of your research and development to make the work?
Yeah, it was. It was first commissioned by the League of Professional Theatre Women in Spain.
Right.
And it was interesting because Don Quixote as a book, it's been quite important for me since I was a teenager. So I kept on thinking about that character and about that character today,
Right.
in an age where it seems that talking about changing the world is kind of naive and pretty impossible. And then I just wanted to use that story as a reflection of where we are today. Then working with the professional league, they were saying, oh, but why do we always have male main characters, main protagonists? And then I said, that's a really good point. And then I kept on thinking about it, and it just occurred to me that the unusual hero of today would be an older woman. You know, they do contribute a lot to the community. They are in all of the neighborhood kind of talks, and they go to demonstrations, and they do a lot. But it's not the kind of person that we think
when we think of a hero.
Yeah. So then it became the story of this woman. And then another aspect of it was that I wanted to integrate circus and dance and theater. So the laboratories that I did in Madrid and in Mallorca were about that synergy. What happens when you combine in the studio artists from these 3 specialities.
Right.
Amazing.
That's insane.
Yeah. So obviously you had all of those separate creation processes, and then you made it into a live work initially, and then we met and had our conversations about making it into a film. What sparked your interest in making it into a dance film in the first place?
I think, interestingly, I think about my pieces in a very cinematic way always. I think it's because I really like cinema.
Yeah.
So this has been said to me before, that other pieces were really cinematic, and Quimera specifically, it just lent itself very well to a film.
Yeah.
Because it's a story about a woman that goes on a journey and then gets crazy, or what is perceived as crazy. And then there was a lot that the film could do to enhance that.
Yeah.
That perhaps in the theater, it's I would say, I'm not sure it's more difficult, but it has to be done in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. For
So-
the audience to get that.
Yeah. So there were really clear ideas that I thought, this would work so well as a film.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to you guys, and you agreed.
And we were like,
Yep.
yeah, let's do this.
100%.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, great. So speaking about, the theme of this discussion is stage to screen. So my first question is, what are the initial factors you think about when transitioning a live performance to dance on screen? So what are your initial thoughts? I mean, speaking on Quimera or just on any other experience you've had.
Yeah.
With work
I think
that way.
What is really apparent is that in a theater you usually have a black box. So it's a space that could be anything.
Yeah.
And you're having to fill with a
Space,
with a story and a certain visual concept. Whereas when you're filming, you are in a in a space, in a real space, unless you have the budget to create a whole
set.
So that is really interesting because it all of a sudden brings another layer of what you're trying to communicate. We were talking about the scene of the puppets in the rain. That get crazy. If you watch the first video, you'll understand what I mean. And we were talking about how the background transforms that scene massively.
Oh yeah.
So
because in the theatre piece, it would have just been on
a
black
background. Yeah. And in a way, also, of course, you get the close-ups, and the close-ups can be so interesting because you're also selecting what the audience is seeing. Obviously, you do that in theater through lighting, but it's not the same because you have, obviously, at least 3 meters or more.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, no.
Any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, no, it definitely does change. I mean, I think just as Neus was saying, is that the architecture of the spaces are different. So when you're constructing for a proscenium march, you understand that there's a fourth wall and your audience is going to be over here, but then your audience can be anywhere that you want them to be, but the architecture now becomes this frame.
Yeah.
It now becomes the architecture of what camera you've got in your hand.
Yeah.
And so your dancers have to adhere to that new architecture. Your dramaturgy and anything, your direction of the piece and your choreography especially has to change with this new space. So it's always quite nerve-wracking taking a piece that has already been constructed to life and transposing that into film, because you want to make sure you get the same feeling across through the transposition. So it's always really exciting. And even when we first started editing and I got all the rushes and I watched all the rushes, I was like, it's one of the first times I've ever done it, but I was like, I want Neus to come over
and edit
with me because these pieces of the puzzle is such a new puzzle I've never had before. It's such an abstract puzzle. It's not like, it's not clear lines and clear things where you go, okay, I find the corners. It's like, hold on a second, what?
What's in your mind?
And exactly, it's great. It was nice to see Neus's mind in pieces. So I needed her to construct that. At least the first construction of that, or at least tell me where she wanted to go, and then she could leave me to go, right, okay, I understand what this puzzle's supposed to look like now. So it was just exciting getting new pieces of choreography that I had never worked with before, that sort of tone, that sort of quirkiness. And so I needed to edit a little differently than what I would usually do.
Than you normally do, 100%.
So I needed Neus there to kind of, so I think that was one of the greatest things for me, is having Neus there. And then when she left, it was like, good, all right, it's done. I know exactly what I need to do. I know the tone of the piece, and then now we can construct it.
I mean, that collaboration in the edit is so important too, especially with Quimera, because there's so many different dimensions to it. And it's really important to bring everything together and really portray that story in the way that you want it to be told. So it was amazing, even just the little bit that I got to watch of you guys editing together.
And we had so much
I was
fun.
just hiding in the back like, ooh.
We laughed
It's a really
so
interesting
much.
process to watch because, you have two different eyes, two different minds. Obviously it's your baby, but you've got this eye for editing. So seeing that sort of like collaboration of ideas and, well, what if we do this here? It's like watching a whole other work of art.
But we were also really in tune, I felt. Like there were moments of like, and got it here. And it was just exactly the timing. Like we felt the timing because of course we're both professional dancers. So it was also very intuitive.
You were so in sync. Absolutely.
No, because it was nice, because essentially we were just choreographing together again. And so I just didn't want to choreograph Neus's piece by myself and re-choreograph her piece and then not get that feeling right. So once I knew we were in sync, as soon as she left, I could continue with that aesthetic and go, okay, cool, I think she would want it to cut here. Because it's like, here is a bit more like jarring or a little thing like that. Okay, that's what we're going for. Let's continue that. We're enjoying the long takes, right? Let's continue with that sort of vibe and these intercuts in. So there was definitely a rhythmic structure to Quimera as a piece. And it's totally a new rhythmic structure that I've ever worked with before. That juxtaposition between those really long takes and then really sharp pieces of information. Bah! And you go, whoa, like, and we would be like, it just needs to be like, cut in there, and we go back to the long take, and then we both sit there and exhale, like, it's beautiful. So I love editing like that. I love, that's how I edit. I edit with a choreographic
Yeah.
You know.
And that is one of the added differences, I think, which is the choreography of the camera.
Yeah.
And James, being a dancer as well, helped with that movement. And the choreography of the editing, which can completely change
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the timing. I think the timing of a film is very different from the timing of a performance.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
How long is the
you're
piece?
choosing the pace, aren't you?
The piece is an hour.
Right.
The live piece is an
piece
hour.
Yeah.
And how long is the final edit?
15,
right now?
I think.
minutes.
Yeah, about 15 minutes.
So it was at first when we were having our first meeting. Omari was like, "Great, but how do you need to shorten it?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I don't know." So it's a lot of choosing and also being flexible. I think at the time. Having a good idea of what you want to do, but be ready to change it.
To change it up, yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen. And actually, even when you're filming it, you might have an idea, I want this to be the focus. But when you watch it back on screen, you're like, actually, you change your mind.
Yeah.
This makes more sense now that I'm seeing it after we filmed.
Right.
But I think, that's beautiful. Yeah. It's condensing 1 hour into 15 minutes and choosing how can I keep this essence of this hour of live work and portray that, emotion and that story in
with this
15
new
minutes.
Pace. Yeah,
with
it's
the
definitely changed the
location
pace,
and the framing of the shot and the close-ups and everything that you're talking about. It changes the game, doesn't it?
Yeah. And also, I think, for instance, in the first scene, James had a really good idea of all of the dancers disappearing at the end, and Quimera is left on her own, which of course is something that you cannot do in the on the stage because you clearly are living. But it's beautiful to speak about that transformation in her head and to lead into the home scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because as you were saying, in that first scene, because it was, or a few of the scenes were quite long takes, so the dancers had to appropriate themselves in that space, hiding behind cameras and doing all these sorts of things. How did you prep the dancers for the change?
Choreography?
Yeah, because obviously it's the difference between getting ready to perform a piece in its entirety, a 1 hour piece all the way through, and then getting ready to do one piece 28 times.
One section of the piece.
over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Even when I've done
it?
photography, I always get injured because you're always doing that same jump over and over
Over and
again.
over.
And you don't do that in the piece.
No.
So that right leg is torn by the end of the piece.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, was there something did you change the way that you choreographed when you were remaking? Or was it the same process and it didn't really change much at all?
Just preparing their minds for the fact that they were going to have to do it
Well,
multiple times.
We are really lucky that everybody is really, really experienced in the cast. So I didn't have to do much. They were really ready and prepared for it. And in fact, for instance, Sarah, the main character, she every time she did it better on her own because she really could understand what was needed, and also the communication with James was really good, and it was like we started clapping at the end of one scene because it was wow. So that's why I always like to work with very experienced dancers because I think it's
a blessing.
It's something that you cannot quite explain as a director. It's not about being a policewoman and being like, hey, okay, we're gonna do this. It's about them really embracing that. So they were really good about it. And I think they all knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah. Magic.
Yeah.
So, next question. Let's see here. What do you feel the biggest challenges are about adapting a stage work to the screen?
It's one of my questions, but you can take it.
What?
That was one of my questions, but no, it's very But what are the challenges?
What was the
James?
biggest challenge on?
Any challenges, James? Production side.
A million of them.
There's always
For me, the timing, it really was a challenge for me.
The
like,
timing of
the
shoot.
the fact that it has
You
to
have to
be
condense it into 15
very
minutes.
condensed, and also that especially because in Quimera there's an evolution of the character, so that evolution had to happen a lot quicker than it does in the
Live
performance.
yeah.
So for me, it was my main question was: is the audience going to understand what's happening, or are they going to be completely flabbergasted and be like, "What's happening?"
Lost.
Yeah, yeah. So
From my point of view, I think in general, if we're talking about converting performance to screen, the main challenge I would say is finding a way of communicating with whoever's piece it is, whether it's a producer or a director or a choreographer in this case, and finding a clear and efficient way of communicating with them that the piece is going to change.
yeah.
And I think that what would be kind of the biggest issue, which I think that is kind of one of the biggest challenges of doing this, kind of became our blessing in this case, because Neus was very open to doing that, and I feel like you have a lot of experience in thinking in that way anyway, so you were very ready and prepared to make quite drastic alterations to what the stage piece was in order to put it on film. And I think that for me is where from my point of view, what my role in the process is. That's where I see a lot of the problems, is people are like, well, this isn't what I made, so if we change it, then it's not the piece anymore. But it has to change because it's a new medium, it's a new delivery method, it's a different viewer pool even. You've got a slightly different audience, and you have new tools at your disposal than you would have on stage. So it's always going to change, and I think the faster people
Accept that.
grasp hold of that and understand the balance between what has been created and what can be created, the better the work ultimately comes out like. But that was incredibly smooth in this case.
Right.
I think it's also the trust in your collaborators.
Yeah.
I think when you choose your collaborators, you have to really think of what they are bringing to the mix, and really appreciate their expertise. And that for me was really clear, working with the two of you in this case. And you in a producing role. No, but I meant but on set, you were with them. Yeah. And yeah, I know you have an experience and you have an eye that I don't, and that's why I'm working with you. Otherwise, I would be doing it on my own, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then another key thing is that it wasn't an afterthought, I don't think. I think you knew you were going to make a film. That's where another thing
That's
is.
a very important statement, I
Right.
think, because I think in most cases, initially it's a live performance, and then people decide later, oh, maybe we can make this into a dance film.
But then they also go to it like, okay, let's make a film out of it. The choreography's already done.
Yeah.
They
think it's gonna be a
and then we
really
just have to
easy
really
process,
just put
don't
it and
they?
press record, and then we've got it. But then you have to rewire that choreography for the new architecture. So I think it's good to know, if you are going to make this transition, think about it beforehand, or at least know that you're going to be going through two very separate production processes.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have to get back into the studio again, get in there, and even if you're not there with the camera all the time, show the cinematographer footage, play with things, different ideas. So I think it really helps to have that foresight so that you're not.
Yeah, and be open to evolving and changing, like James said, and like you said. That leads right into my next question, which is when you convert live work to dance on screen, do you believe it takes on a new life? So that's kind of what James was touching on, which is that it very much, in some cases, and some people feel, becomes its own new work. Because, I believe that that's the case with a lot of pieces. If you make a live performance and then you transition it to a screen piece, it often becomes something entirely different, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But some people have a hard time with that. So as a creator, someone who has created a live work and then said what you were saying about making it into a film, they sometimes have a really hard time with that transition because they just want it to be a they want it to be replicated. They want it to be a copy of that live performance, but on film. And I think that's there's ways of doing that, but why do that when you can bring new life to something and turn it into something bigger and better and evolve it into something completely new with this taste of what it was live. Go on.
I also think that exactly what you just said is the case, not even for the conversion from stage to screen. I think it's also the case just a conversion from a concept in someone's mind to screen. Because what if you said, I want to make this dance film, and you come up with a concept in your mind and you envision what that film is going to be, when you actually film it, you have to be ready for that to change.
Oh yeah.
And what you see in your head is in most cases not what goes onto camera.
Yes.
So it's like making a plan for best case scenario, but then being ready to surrender it and let it take on its own body when it actually gets onto screen. And obviously that's the same as stage to screen, but even just as in seeing a concept and having it come to fruition, there's also a transition in that process.
Yeah.
We always say, like, we've been saying on our course, what Screendance kind of for us, and we always said, whatever it is, when Screendance is presented, it shouldn't be able to be performed in a theatre space.
Oh, I like that.
Because if you're truly using film and dance collaboratively, then
you can't replicate it.
Then you can't.
Live.
You shouldn't be able to replicate that live. So with that knowledge intact, it works vice versa as well. If you're making work for the theatre, it shouldn't really be able to work on film. So like when you just film it, you just film it wide, and then you just film the whole piece as that one audience member in B25 would see it. You're not even capturing what a live performance would feel like anyway.
No.
Even if you go on stage, like some of the Matthew Bourne BBC full length pieces, you get on stage and you follow the dancers and you give it a bit of a journey and narrative. Still doesn't feel the same as seeing it live either. So it has to really it does change. It does change to fit the medium. And
the thing is, I really believe that each different art form can say and communicate different things. So why not use that chance? It's like I said before, I love cinema. I really can get so much out of a good movie. So but I also love performances, but they give me different experiences. And I think just every time you're using an art form, you have to wonder what's your reason, what is that art form contributing to what you're trying to express. And it's the same, I say, with circus, with dance, with the mixture between circus and dance. What are they giving you? Don't try to use circus as dance or dance as circus, or just see what they are intrinsically offering you.
I have a question about that, actually, just a random question, because circus, so much of circus, the joy of it, I think, is seeing it live and knowing the risk.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I wonder if maybe the power of circus is slightly reduced by being in the filmic space, because the knowledge of they probably did this a few times to get it right.
And it's safe.
But I only think of that in terms of circus specifically.
Yeah.
Because circus is such a thing where you go,
you're like, you're gonna fall.
Do you have those moments in film when you're filming circus? Because
that's a very good question.
It is. And we ended up not using circus.
That's the main circus, the biggest.
It became its own scene, didn't it?
It became its own scene
as a separate.
Yeah.
But also the way we use the rope scene is not the. It's more about the metaphor of the binding together. Right. It's a really good point. I think you have those moments in scary films and in so it for sure has to do a lot with the music and the editing. Right. But also the possibility of filming it from a completely, different place. Like originally, with the rope scene, I was thinking, you can film it from above, from a tripod, but then the tripod wasn't a ladder one, so you couldn't.
Yeah.
But
then that restriction gave beautiful moments, like when Daniel's hanging upside down in the rope scene, and we don't see above his torso, so we just see his head going like this, upside down, just so close to the floor, and then we realize, oh, someone's holding him there, you know.
Hanging.
Yeah, just be able to transpose it in that way. But I guess in the way that the circus took on a more of a dancey aesthetic, allowed for it to work in a filmic realm in that way, I guess. It was just a question that came up to me.
In your brain,
I was like, obviously the circus that was performed in the piece wasn't that like big lifts and big jumps or any kind of, you know, tightrope things like that. And I imagine when we watch tightrope or people doing free running on film or going across mountains or doing that, you've seen the GoPro with the mountain bikes and stuff, you still get that.
You still get that feeling of...
But I imagine it's the long take aspect of it as well, and you kind of know it's a bit more documentary. I don't know. It's something to think about. I'm just chatting.
I think it's the length. I think it's the length of the cuts too, because if you sort of don't know where it's going, and then you see the journey, and then what's going to happen now? But I guess obviously in this case, that didn't really end up being what we used because it just turned into something else, and we rolled with it, right?
Yeah,
because again, it was a fictional narrative in that respect. So if it was a documentary, I guess it would be a different thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to put that in the ether.
Final question,
Oh,
the
gosh.
banger.
Here we go.
Do you prefer watching live dance, or do you prefer watching dance on screen?
I haven't seen live dance in a very, it's very sparsely that I see
Live dance anymore.
dance. Yeah, like I'll probably watch, for every live piece of dance, I'll probably watch 100 dance films. To be completely...
Yeah, that's fair.
Like even normal films, when people go, oh, did you see the new film? I'm like, oh no, I've just been watching dance films. And then you can't go, oh yeah, did you see the new Marlene Miller piece? And then they're like, oh, who are you talking about, you know? So I have watched so many dance on screen films and been working in dance on screen.
Well, yeah, but that's your focus right now, but obviously
But
with
then
your
when I watch
masters-
live now, it's so intense. It's so
Intense emotionally, or okay?
Because it's like, oh my god, they're like right there, like, oh. And then I go,
touch
oh,
them.
this would be a really good film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more intense because I'm not used to being
There.
in
the room.
that presence much anymore. It's like when you don't watch horror movies for a while and then you watch one and you're like, oh my god, this is the scariest thing. Like, it's a lot because you're not given that feeling. It's a very different feeling. So I feel like I enjoy watching live more because I don't watch it as often.
Yeah, it's
So when
more special to you
when I get the
somehow now.
honor to sit in the presence of someone and not recording them and just living them,
Watching.
you know, not this
Experiencing
separation
it.
kind of thing.
That's very good
It's
point.
actually quite refreshing.
What do you feel?
I don't really know. I think with live performances, you're very much part of the moment, and it depends on how you're feeling, what happened when you go to the theater, where are you sitting in the theater, and in a way you can also get very put off by things around you, whereas when you're watching a dance film, it's almost like your concentration is much more driven because you can choose the moment that you're watching it. But at the same time, they just give you different things. I think there is a very powerful connection with the fact that it's being performed in the moment and that it's unique and it's not able to be reproduced.
And then you know that you're witnessing this. And even the next performance,
and
they're
it's
not going to
gone.
see the
It's
same
not
thing.
gonna
It's
be the
gone.
same. It's gone.
Yeah, it's like.
So I think that's something very, very special.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that it's really hard to answer that question, which is why I wanted to ask
But I've got
it,
a flip side of it though.
Okay, go.
Performing in front of screen and performing live.
Oh, that's a whole other ballgame. Can I
Is that
say what I
another
was going to
ballgame?
say first before we go
okay,
into
go on,
that?
go on.
Because
on.
I think that's like a whole other thing.
It is.
But in terms of experience watching it, being a viewer, I think the main difference is, like you were saying, the emotion. But for me, I've watched some dance films now that really still evoke something very powerful in me, and I didn't think that was possible to sort of replicate that intensity of a reaction to watching dance on film. I thought it was, impossible to replicate that experience of being in the room and experiencing it live and feeling that intensity. And I think that there is ways that you can do it now because it's happened to me. But it's so interesting because, as you said, there's nothing like being in the present moment with a person, a dancer, or a group of dancers, and experiencing it with them. That's impossible to reproduce. And that does make it magical, but I think there's an absolute way to recreate something really strong on film. And it's so exciting because it's very, very different. And I think, I don't know if I could choose one or the other because you get different things from them, like you said. It's, two entirely different experiences. But from what you were saying about being on the flip side, being in front of the camera,
yeah, I'm just saying it kind of equates because when you have an audience in front of you, your sense of performance is so different.
Yeah, and you're reacting to that energy.
Yeah, you're reacting to that energy, and again, it's the same. They're doing the same thing.
Yes.
So it's kind of vice versa. But when it's a film, you're imagining the audience that's going to be.
They're
watching
watching
this,
you all the time.
Or,
Yeah.
or you're not. You're trying not to be aware of the camera, because you're in the moment of the scene. You don't. There's no audience. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting one. Like I guess in theatre, if you've got the fourth wall up, you're not thinking of the audience being there, but
you're right, because as an artist, as a dancer being filmed, I'm like aware there's a camera on me, you know? It totally changes the way you move and the way you're energetically offering yourself to the piece, because you're aware that there's eyes on you, just as you are on stage. You're like, okay, they're watching now, gotta turn it on. But that's an interesting perspective because, I don't know, I think it's different.
Yeah, I was thinking if there is a different sensation in the sense that when you're being watched by the camera, you are also in a way watching yourself from the outside. It's like your little you is watching you, is just looking at. Whereas when you are in a performance, but I'm not saying this as the truth, but I'm just thinking out loud. When you're in the performance, it's almost like you can go more intimately because you feel that connection is going to happen.
And then it's going to be gone.
Quick. It's like
on a more internal level.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas with the screen, somehow it has to be more projected outside. I don't know.
But this is what these conversations are about, because it's good to unpick this, because it's like, okay, what is the difference? Is there any difference? Like, there might not be any difference kind of at all. They're both very similar things. You have an audience at the end of the day, so you want to make sure you portray something within that frame and that architecture that you're working with.
Absolutely. I think it's okay to say that energetically it's different.
Yeah.
Because I think what you offer to a camera lens versus what you offer to an audience feels different from my experience.
Right.
So I think I would say that as a statement of fact for myself.
Right.
But
well, that's the thing. I'm sure. Was it Sarah? The main. Yeah, Sarah. So her facial expressions are insane.
But she's a trained actress, I must say.
And that's the thing. It's those subtleties and those little eyebrow
that
movements,
you can get on camera that you can't
we manage to get on camera.
It's like the moment that she's like dancing, and then she kind of has a moment of realization, and you see that shift.
But I wonder, was that any different to her stage performance of that scene?
Well,
maybe not, but maybe you couldn't see it.
You couldn't see it as much, and also because of the mirror, you're kind of seeing her looking at herself.
In the stage performance, so
in the film, you're looking at her watching herself.
Right.
So there's something about her watching herself that is quite interesting as an audience.
Right.
Whereas in the performance,
that doesn't happen.
She's just in an empty space.
Right.
Well, this could go on as always. There's always more to say, but thank you so much for joining us, Neus. It's been joyous.
Yeah, it's been absolutely awesome. Absolute pleasure working with you. Until the next one.
Yes.
Hopefully, Quimera should be out very, very soon, but check our talk and critique about it as well. And also post your comments below about what you think about moving from stage to screen, or even the other way around if you've done it as well. If there's any readings you guys have, you want to post, then we can talk about them later, or maybe even the next one we can bring it up. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, day, evening, whatever time you're watching it. James, big man in the game. Peace out. This is MDC Talks. Ciao. Bye.